Welcome. Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Kate Meenamois, and I am co-chair of Solas Nua, and a hearty welcome to our February Irish Popcorn series. Tonight, very, very special. We have I Am Immigrant, about a 1-hour documentary, and with us is Luke McManus, the filmmaker, director, and producer. Luke's coming to us from Dublin. He's won numerous awards for his documentary work, both as a producer and a director. And he's involved in some really neat stuff right now. So I hope we have a chance to talk about that after the film. We will put the link to his website in the chat area. Also joining us is Boni Odoemene, and he's actually the class of 2018 of the Washington, Ireland program, where he interned on Capitol Hill. He then completed his master's degree in international relations and diplomacy at the University of Birmingham, UK, and is now based in London, working as an investors relations officer for the UK Department of International Trade. He hosts the Black and Irish podcast, a nationwide RTE-sponsored podcast aimed at sharing stories and experiences from Ireland's Black and mixed race community. Okay, so some of the ground rules for the viewing. We'll use the chat area to share general information and to make some general comments. Please use the Q&A function for actual questions to our panelists. There's a lot going on at Solas Nua in the next month, including the ever fabulous Capital Irish Film Festival, March 4 through 14. So look to the chat for more information on that and for how you can get on our mailing list, because you don't want to ever miss one bit of contemporary Irish art. We'll talk with tonight's guests and more about upcoming events at the end of the film. The runtime in the film is about 50 minutes. Please be aware that there is the use of some language that may be offensive, and there are some scenes of violence depicted. So sit back, relax, grab your snack and drink of choice, and we'll see you back here in about 50 minutes. Enjoy. Well, hello there, folks. Welcome back. Boni, you want to unmute yourself and join the conversation here?
There you go. There you go. It's a bit loudy, my background, but.
All right, so that's such a wonderful film, and so many thoughts and things going through our minds as we watch it. But Luke, tell us a little bit why this film? Why did you make it?
Well, funny enough, I got hired to make it under false pretenses, and they asked me did I want to make a film about Gaelic football in Australia, and I said great. And then they rang me back 3 weeks later going, that film's, we've given it to someone else. Do you want to do this thing about race in Ireland? And I was like, no. and then the next day I was like, okay, maybe I will. And that was kind of, I remember sitting there January 2nd, and we knew we had to get something on there for Patrick's Day. And all we had was one line on a piece of paper that said, do something edgy about race in Ireland. That was literally it. Wow. That's all we had.
Wow.
Like, it's kind of mind blowing when I watch it back now, thinking we managed to pull that together in 2.5 months. Like, we were so lucky. I mean, so many lucky breaks. Oh my God, in one film, you know? But it was really hard to do. And we spent weeks trying to find people and all that. And then once we got up and going, you know, as I say, everything fell our way, you know?
Mm-hmm. And so how did you select your subjects? I know there's a story about Boni, but in general, how did you decide who to feature in this film? And did you put a call out?
Interesting question, yeah. Like Sorcha Glacken, who produced the film, had done a lot of work finding people, and we went and met with a lot of people, like I'd say 40 or 50 people. And I'd been doing quite a bit of drama around that time, and I'd been kind of auditioning actors. So it's almost like that process of auditioning. You'd meet people for coffee and just shoot the breeze, maybe record a bit of them on tape. And it was kind of instinctive in a way, like you'd sort of just go, did I enjoy listening to that person, or were they a bit flat, you know, or did they have any presence or an interesting way of talking? And sometimes, like Shayla, the girl from Jobestown, who was in the music video, we went to actually film another guy at that, and then we found her at that shoot, and I was like, she's kind of interesting, you know, and that just turned into that. So that was just random, you know. And then sort of Peter O'Loughlin came along, and we were kind of in two minds about that. But it felt like you needed to see that opinion visualized and to attach a person to it, and you know,
Yeah.
and you know, that obviously worked out in an interesting way as well, you know.
Yeah, we'll get a little deeper into that, but let's hear a little from Boni. So Boni, you selected some subjects. What's your story? What brought you to Ireland? You tell us in the film that you came when you were 2, but tell us a little bit about that journey. And I know you self-identify now as Irish, but Irish and Nigerian and world citizen, and now working in the UK. So what's your story?
Yeah, first of all, hey Kay, how you doing? Hey everyone watching. It's good to see you again, Luke. It's been a while. Yeah, from myself, I moved to Ireland when I was about 2 years old. My father, he was a diplomat for the Nigerian government, so Dublin was his final posting before he decided to retire. He decided to retire and set and raise myself and my siblings in Dublin at that time. Now, this was the late 90s. So this was once this was at one may say the beginning of major cultural shifts and changes immigration wise in Ireland. I grew up across different areas in South Dublin. I went to 5 different primary schools and elementary schools in the States. But for me, growing up in Ireland, it was an amazing experience. Like I mentioned in the documentary, like I had little experiences of racism growing up as a child, but I didn't really get to notice it until I got a bit older. My story overall, however, has been one that has brought me all over the country and now all over the world. As you said in the introduction there, I'm now working as a civil servant now, following my dad's footsteps, but for the British government. One day the Irish government will take me anyway, but yeah, but I'm sure we'll get further into like what I'm doing, etc. during the discussions.
Okay, super. So a couple of questions in chats that come up. So this is made in 2016. Let's hear from you both whether you think in the last 4 years this sort of climate about people who are not sort of native Irish or just immigrants in general in Ireland, has that changed in the last 4 years, or is this a pretty accurate reflection of where we are now? I'm thinking of this question because, Boni, I'm thinking of the conversation you had in one of your podcasts about it being easier to be Black in London than it is to be Black in Dublin. So what is it? You know, what is it about Ireland that maybe is still a little sensitive to the fact that there are different people of different colors, cultures in the country? Let's start with you, Luke. What do you think? Any change in the last 4 years?
Looking at the film again tonight, it feels very much of that winter, which was very much about the sort of migration crisis in Europe and the Syrian civil war. There was a huge rise in hostility to Islam, and that to me it feels like that's ebbed away a little bit. You know, that isn't as big a sort of pressing, fearful thing. I mean, it's 2016. Within 6 months, Brexit had happened. Within 11 months, Trump had been elected. It was a weird year. You know, people were in a slightly paranoid and strange kind of state of mind politically about this kind of stuff. I mean, and there are people coming through in Ireland, Boni's age, who are sort of becoming part of the furniture, who are from these backgrounds. You know, the hip hop scene here has become massive since then, and there's like kind of, you know, national figures who are from African backgrounds who are, you know, living in a place like Limerick. So I think on that side, things have improved a lot. This is from the middle-aged white man perspective, obviously, but but at the same time, I do feel like the racists are more organized now. I know on Facebook, you know, I think there'd be a lot more people than that at that meeting if it was held today. I think there was quite a high-profile tragedy in Dublin this last year when the police mistakenly killed a young man from an African background in a suburb called Blanchardstown, and it was really striking. Obviously, it come very soon after Black Lives Matters in the States, but it was really interesting to see how the racists got on Facebook straight away telling lies about the guy, and it was palpable. I could see it on feeds of people I knew. So, you know, like, it's by no means all perfect by any means. But I don't know, Bonnie, what you think. I mean, I'm just thinking there was one girl we talked to about being on the show, and we didn't go with her in the end, but she's now a newsreader on RTE, and she does, like, you know, she presents the kids' news show. She presents Nationwide, which is like a very hugely watched kind of Middle Ireland type show. So there are a few more people from African backgrounds breaking through.
What do you think?
Yeah, you know what, to be honest, it was quite interesting rewatching the documentary. It was my first time watching it in full in almost 5 years, which is mad seeing me at the age of 20 and thinking, has my voice softened up or not since I've moved to England? But in regards to the narrative at the moment, looking at it back then, Luke's completely right in regards to, at that time, this was the height of topic around Islamic immigration into Europe, and a lot of fake news was spreading around, and a lot of fears were being manipulated. The interesting thing about looking back is it's funny because it's somewhat of a precursor to the situation that we're currently in at the moment in the country, and one may say globally, because it was actually quite interesting when I was watching it, because there was certain things that was said during the documentary and certain aspects of the documentary that I didn't pick up its importance until now. So, for example, the fact that Peter lost that general election, and it kind of felt like done, dusted, that's him, done. But the conversation around him and what he stood for and Pegida never carried on. And a lot of these people, they never really changed their opinions. It just went back into the shadows. And as Luke alluded to, when a tragic incident took place, where you have different community groups at odds with each other, these same people came back out to orchestrate fake news campaigns, etc., etc. It's also quite interesting looking back at, it was a 2015-2016 period where this concept of fake news was really getting into the mainstream, and seeing how that has developed and how people's genuine fears were manipulated back then, but now have carried on. Is something I feel that one may argue is a failure on all of us in regards to trying to address these fears. In regards to being Black in Ireland, and when I said to you that it's easier being Black in the UK than in Ireland, that's more so for me in an acceptance sense and in a cultural sense. You know, growing up, I grew up in predominantly middle class areas across South Dublin, and I was fairly used to being the only Black person in my circles. I was fairly used to not seeing people who looked like me in the mainstream or in positions of, I wouldn't even say positions of power, but let's say positions of influence or positions of inspiration, for example. And that forced a lot of people who look like me to look to the UK and to look to America for that inspiration. And it's a funny thing, and I always say it, when I did my time in America, and now I'm living in the UK, I could tell anybody that I'm Irish, and they'd be like, "Oh yeah, I could hear it in your voice, whatever." But I still get that question back home, where are you really from? And that kind of question as to, am I accepted still here? What else do I have to do? Is still, at my age of 25, it still lingers in the back of my mind. And it was funny, I was analysing some of the things I was saying back when I was 20 there, and trying to put two and two together as to why I said what I said. And now, post BLM from 2020, it's really kind of, it's bad. I was saying things back then that a lot of people started saying now. And the funny thing is that those things I was saying back then, there were people who looked like me who were saying it 10 years prior. and who was saying 15 years prior, you know. And linking that back to my Peter O'Loughlin reference as to the lack of conversations continuing. Because what I was saying back then, there wasn't enough follow-up conversation as to how we could help move forward from there. Situation that Luke touched on in regards to the shooting by the police towards a black person in North Dublin, that led to heightened racial tensions in Ireland, which are still there at the moment, was allowed to have a strong presence because of that lack of communication and conversation amongst people from different communities.
Well, and of course, Luke alluded to this. A lot of the conversation over these issues actually happens on the internet, and then a lot of it ends up going underground and into these spaces where conventional media doesn't reach. But some of it also, one of our questions, some of it also happens in the discourse in mainstream media. Is what responsibility or what role has mainstream media played in Ireland in either helping racism cool down, integrating more into society, etc.?
With the exception of a couple of late night kind of radio DJ phone-in guys, my take on it would be that the media here are reasonably responsible. We're not in as bad a place as, you know, I suppose a Trump hasn't emerged here, a Nigel Farage hasn't emerged here, a Le Pen. There isn't a political leader who is peddling an agenda like this with any great success, and there's lots of theories as to why that is. There was one guy who ran in the presidential election who was quite anti-traveler, and you know, I'd imagine if you scratched his surface, the immigrants wouldn't be far behind. But it is kind of encouraging, I think, about how the extreme right haven't managed to organize in Ireland in any great number, because we have a very representative electoral system, as I'm sure most people know. So, you know, they don't need that many votes, you know, to get a foothold. But it doesn't seem to have happened yet. And I think the media, we don't have a Fox News, we don't have English tabloids. You know, again, there is a sort of, generally speaking, a responsible attitude, I think, by Irish media. But maybe I'm just saying that because I'm part of the Irish media.
Well, there could be some bias there. I'm taking a look at some of the questions, and this was a question I ended up asking you. We need a little more information on the attack on the tram. Tell us how that unfolded. I know it happened very much on the fly, and one of our audience actually questions whether the people who did the attack were ever prosecuted, whether they were found, etc. So, Luke, you're going to have to tell us that story.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons, I mean, looking back, there was a live police investigation about that. It happened like maybe 15 days before we transmitted and locked the picture. You know, it was very tight. It was a very tight production. So we didn't actually know who they were or what the hell was going on. They chanted anti-fasc, so they were obviously anti-fascists. And the tape ended up being given to the police here as evidence. It was a very strange experience to be on that tram, and you can catch a glimpse of me a couple of frames going, Jesus Christ, you know, when a fight kicks off in the tram, you know all about it. It is pretty intense. But my understanding is they were sort of football hooligan / leftists, kind of street fighters who'd basically spied on these guys and staked them out, and they boarded the tram and then attacked them. So they were kind of left-wing self-styled street fighters, I suppose. Dublin being Dublin, I was at a party about a year later, and at 3 a.m. a guy walks up to me and goes, "Are you Luke McManus?" I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "I met you on a tram once." And he was one of those guys. Which is just tells you what sort of scale of a city we live in, you know. But I think there was a police investigation. I don't think any of them were prosecuted. I don't think they managed to make it stick on any of them. So I never heard of anyone being prosecuted for that. I mean, it was just one of those mad things that like in a weird way, is obviously as a documentary maker, it's kind of a gift, you know, but it was a pretty unsettling thing to be around.
Mhm. I love the way the importance of family and the immigrant experience is brought up in the film. And Boni, maybe you could share with us, number one, tell us who that big bear of a man is you hug after you find out that you've won the student union presidency. But also, what role did your family play in helping you acclimate to this new culture, this new country? Were they the safety spot? Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, first of all, the big person that I hugged in that scene is my very big little brother. He actually moved to England when he was 18, but during my presidential election, he actually flew back. He was like, I know I have to study, but I have to support you, bro. So he flew back to campaign for me. In regards to the role of my family, they were crucial to my, not just to my election, but just to my ability to adapt and to, I wouldn't even say adapt because I was 2 years old when I moved to Ireland, but they were crucial in regards to pushing me and getting me involved in Irish society, in Irish culture, etc. Like my dad, even though he, you know, was working full time, he made the time to send me to football training, send me to Gaelic football training, send my sister to ballet, all those things. And my parents really, really worked hard on not allowing us to feel like we're outsiders and not allowing us to feel like we cannot be the talent that we want to be, you know. I remember when I first told my parents I wanted to run for president, and my dad, he asked me, like, you know, you are a black boy. And you can imagine he's saying this in this strong Nigerian accent, you know you're a black boy, and do you think they'll vote for you? And I remember looking him in the eye and saying, look, Dad, I know I am a black boy, but I'll give them a reason to vote for me, you know. And we thank God that that election, I won that election by 99 votes, you know, so every vote did count. But my family have always been the push behind me to always never give up on my dreams, believe in myself, and to never, you know, to never give up. That's why calling my mum was so emotional. And it was actually quite funny when she was actually cheering for me, because she was the very first person that was afraid of me running for election. Classic mum. She was like, why do you want to go run for election? Like, finish your studies and go into the legal profession, etc. I was like, nah, Mum, I have a calling. And can I just quickly touch on the question in regards to the media as well? That's okay, Kate. I do feel that the media have a massive role to play in Ireland in regards to changing perceptions and in regards to helping people feel at home. But I also feel at the same time that there's a lot mainstream Irish media still has to do. At the moment, from my perspective, it's not as reflective of Irish society today as it needs to be. There's so many unique Afro-Irish stories, Roma Irish stories, Sudanese Irish stories, Polish Irish stories out there that are not being told at the moment. A lot of different voices and experiences that aren't being shared. And one of the things that allows fear and discomfort to grow amongst communities is lack of exposure to another community. And there's a lot of work that mainstream Irish media needs to do today to allow people to experience different communities in order to dispel that fear. Like at the moment, like looking back at what happened there 5 years ago, Identity Ireland, that political party, ceases to exist. But now in Ireland, we have IRA Exit, we have the National Party, you know, and we have more than two far-right political parties at the moment. And we even have a figurehead at the moment, and her name is Gemma O'Doherty.
Oh, yeah.
You can't forget Gemma. Everyone knows about Gemma, you know. And it's actually grown in the last 5 years to far right-wing activism in Ireland, politically speaking as well. So there's a major role Irish media has to play in regards to, you know, helping people experience the different forms of Irishness that we have today, you know.
That's so well said, and actually the perfect segue into and then Luke, if you'll indulge us and let Boni talk a little bit more about his podcast series with RTE. So how did it get started? I know it's coming up for a second season, yay! But tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I'm also a podcaster for an organization which I co-founded called Black and Irish. We're an organization found on the 3rd of June 2020, following the death of George Floyd. It was myself and two of my friends. We had a chat and we were talking about what can we do as three young lads who were three student union officers in our respective universities to try and expose to wider Irish society the Black experience and to actually create a space where people's Black and mixed race Irish people's voices can be shared. So we made an Instagram page called Black and Irish. Within our first week, we had over 10,000 followers, and now we have over 46,000 followers on Instagram. Big, massive team. And was from basically what happened with RT and how we got that podcast. Every weekend, we did something called the Black and Irish Show on our Instagram Live, where we invited a Black or mixed race Irish person who, you know, is in sport, in music, in the arts, etc., to talk about their experiences growing up and to kind of, you know, empower more Black and mixed race people to really make most of their talents. And it was one person from RT Radio watched it randomly. He reached out to us. We had a couple of meetings with RT, and some of the things I'm saying right now, myself and my colleagues passionately, we explained that the role mainstream media has to play in regards to combating hate and racism. So the idea of the Black and Irish podcast came, and that was the podcast in which you listened to, which was great, 10 episodes, and I'm happy to also say that we now have season 2 confirmed with many more plans in the pipeline. So yeah.
Yeah, well, so folks, I do recommend that you check it out. It's great. So we do have another couple questions, and actually, Luke, we've talked a little bit about this. We know what's happened to Boni in the last 5 or 6 years. Do you have any idea what's going on with some of your other kids from the film?
Adam's doing pretty well. He has a daughter, and both him and his wife are working in TikTok, believe it or not.
Wow.
Yeah, Dublin, as I'm sure most of you know, is a center of .comming and the tech industry. And actually Elham, the lady who had the thing happen to her on the bus, she's also working on TikTok. And she has a little boy called Adam, funnily enough. I'm not sure there's any connection, but I was chatting to her and she got to marry the man she was engaged to during the film, and that's all going great, and he's in Ireland now. So she was in brilliant form, actually. I had a lovely chat with her yesterday. She's doing really, really well.
Oh, good.
So they all seem to be doing well. I couldn't get Ricardo on the phone. He's changed his number. I'm not sure he ever became a guard though, but I am hoping to track him down over the next few days, because of another project that he might be involved in. So yeah, I mean, I didn't ring Peter. I mean, you know, it's funny about Peter because, like, I do remember him saying to me he was unemployed, and I always think that's a strange place for anyone to be, and it can lead you down some funny paths. And I was like, well, what do you want to be? And he goes, well, I'm a qualified primary school teacher, you know. And then he just looked at me and went, but no one's going to hire me, are they? And I was like, well, no, they're not. You know, like how could a head teacher of a primary school hire a guy who is anti people of different backgrounds, you know? And he says he's not, again, you know, he says he's not anti them, but, like, you know, he is really ultimately. So, but it does make you think about people who are marginalized and are unemployed and all that, and how they can kind of connect one thing to another in a bad way and try and find meaning from this kind of stuff, you know? So in a weird way, looking at the film, I kind of felt he's sort of a victim of his own terrible ideas, you know, as much as being the bad guy, you know.
Well, we've certainly seen that here in the States just in the last couple months, the risk of marginalization and the actions that people will take when they feel marginalized. Gosh, I can't believe the time is flying here. So Luke, we want to hear from you about your current project, which I think is just so cool.
Well, I've a lot of things going. Funny enough, I've another thing that looks like it's happening, which is about the homeless crisis in Dublin, which has been a huge problem here. And I'm working with a friend of mine who runs one of the maddest places I've ever been. It's a homeless cafe, and they kind of breathalyze the guys when they come in. They're kind of like 10 a.m. They've already had half a bottle of vodka. So it's going to be a very interesting project. And I'm doing another thing about the north inner city of Dublin, which is where I live, which is a pretty traditional working class area, and about the folk music, which is having this massive revival at the moment. There's an amazing band called Lankum, Lankum. I can really recommend them. They tour the States quite a lot. And they're kind of bringing that ballad tradition and that trad tradition into the 21st century. So I'm doing that as well. So yeah, it's been busy, thank God, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, so much going online now. It's almost too much. You know, it's almost too much to absorb. And I think we were talking before. One of the nice things about a podcast is, you know, you can listen, take a walk, listen to it, and even, you know, even with the film, you can just listen to the audio sometimes and then sit back down and watch the film. It's a way to get off the screen all the time. So gosh, I know I'm amazed that you're both still awake. I hope our audience realizes that these people are 5 hours ahead of us. So it's pretty late. I want to thank you both. I'm going to give you like your last words that you want to tell the audience. Like I said, we're a mixed lot here in DC, but we have people that we pull in from increasingly all over the world into these screenings. So Boni, what's your last words?
For me, it's just to say a big, massive thank you to everyone, to yourselves, for organising this and for inviting me on. For anyone who's watching, who's enjoyed this conversation, enjoyed the documentary, please, let's continue the conversations and let's keep on this journey. What we're trying to do here is that, for me personally, I want to see a more united and a more loving Ireland. You know, we are loving and we are united, but there's so much more talent and potential for all of us. So please stay in touch with us and follow us on Instagram, which is black_and_Irish, or just have a listen to the podcast. There's so many uniquely Irish stories out there, despite skin color. Yeah.
Okay. And Luke, your last words before we do a sign off.
Not sure, how do I follow that? Jesus.
I don't know.
Come here, it's amazing. I really appreciate you. It's wonderful to see the film again 5 years later. I don't know, part of me thinks we're in a better place now. I don't know why. Maybe this pandemic has sort of brought people together in a strange way. That's certainly the experience we've had personally here, is that the sense of solidarity in society seems to be stronger than it was a year ago. And hopefully that will continue. And look, thank you both to you, Kate, and Miranda and Sean and everyone else for facilitating. It's amazing to see so many people here. So it's really appreciated. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for joining us. You know, as I mentioned, as we opened, a huge month coming up for Solas Nua. We, of course, are doing everything online, and our big push is for our Capital Irish Film Festival, which starts March 4th through the 14th. You can buy your passes through our website. You will have a window by which you can watch each one of the films. The opener is Aracht on March 4th. We also have some full-length features from Cartoon Saloon, so you can even bring the kids into a couple of the films. And many of the films will have Q&As afterwards with directors and producers, obviously within the very same format that we're doing this. And particularly on March 8th, we will see the a cappella group Landless again, in conjunction with the Capital Irish Film Festival, for a wonderful piece, free piece. You don't have to buy a pass for this particular event. It's on the website. And then coming up, we also have our own podcast, a commission podcast, We Are the Makers, which starts February 27th. This is a series of just about every quarter of the year. We'll have a new commission podcast. And then on Sunday, February 21st, we have an RTE radio drama, and there'll be a question and answer with our own Rex Doherty, who is the director of theater here at Solas Nua after that. We have our book clubs coming up. We have nonfiction February 26th, fiction March 8th, poetry March 15th. We even have another Irish popcorn lined up for March 31st. It'll be Town of Strangers. So again, if you want to be on our mailing list, check out the link within the chat. You can always go directly to our website under the Get Involved tab, click on there and become part of the Solas Nua community, where you'll have the opportunity to see the very best of contemporary Irish art. So thank you again, gentlemen, Boni and Luke. You now have a glass of whatever you need to go to sleep. But Boni, you do have to get up for work tomorrow, don't forget.
I'm sure it'll be grand. Okay, it'll be all right. Don't worry about it.
All right, thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
And thanks to our audience, and thanks for your questions. Sorry we couldn't get to every single one, but I think we got to most of them. And I will say, Boni, you have a whole fan club that's saying they're already following you. So
I love it.
you did good. Luke, you got to get into that game. You got to get into that game where they're following, or become 25 again. Maybe that's what it takes. All right, thank you so much. And again, as always, thank you to Tom McIntyre, Polly, and all the crew at NYU for making this possible. Thank you to Sean Wren and all the other great folks at Solas Nua that help bring film to our audiences here in DC and beyond. So thank you so much, and we will see you at the Capital Irish Film Fest and at many of our other programming pieces. Okay, thank you.